Welcome to Chapter 7 of The Lemonade War by Jacqueline Davies. Fantastic book that I've read off and on over the years in my classroom. Chapter 7 is called Location, Location, Location. Please make sure that you have setting written on the top. This, again, has a setting that moves from the beginning. And it is an Evan chapter. So let's get started. Obviously, highlight location, put a V at the top. Real estate term that refers to the position of a piece of real estate as it relates to the value of that real estate. So we can think about all the things that location can mean, but if we're doing lemonade stand, obviously this is Evan thinking about where his lemonade stand is and where it needs to be. So what would be some of those things that you would need to do to make a successful lemonade stand? What are some things that you need? Well, you need people, right? You need people with money. You need people who are thirsty. We already know it's hot outside, so we know that the atmosphere is set up for this. So where can Evan go where a lot of people are going to be? Think about that as we start this chapter. All right, here we go. Evan was in trouble. So far, he'd earned $47.11, which was more money than he'd ever had in his whole life. But today was Friday. There were only 3 days left, 3 days to beat Jesse. He needed to earn almost $53 to win the bet, and that meant each day he had to earn. Evan tried to do the math in his head. 53 divided by 3. 53 divided by 3. His brain spun like a top. Please make sure you highlight that. That is a simile. But remember, he's not the smart one. He's not the math kid. That's Jesse's job. We'll see what he does with this. We can see that Jesse's learned from Evan when she figured out that Carly was one of those girls that maybe is more mean than nice. Has Evan learned anything from Jesse? He didn't know where to begin. He went to his desk, pulled out a piece of paper, his basketball schedule from his last winter, and flipped it over to the back. He found the stub of a pencil in the bottom desk drawer, and on the paper he wrote 53 divided by 3 equals. So already he's starting to do a little bit of the math. We also know in the setting he's now moved into his bedroom. He's working at his desk. He stared and stared at the equation on the page. The number 53 was just too big. He didn't know how to do it. Jesse would know how, he muttered, scribbling hard on the page. Jesse could do long division. Jesse had her multiplication facts memorized all the way up to 14 times 14. Jesse would look at a problem like this and just do it in her head. Snap. I don't want to be you. Evan felt his mouth getting tight, his fingers gripping the pencil too hard as he scribbled a dark storm cloud on the page. As he scribbled a dark storm cloud. Is that a metaphor or a simile? Highlight it. Ponder. As is there. Is it a metaphor? Is it a simile? Tell me what you think. His math papers from school were always covered in X's. Nobody else got as many X's as he did. Nobody. So you can see, he struggles in math. Draw a picture. Mrs. DeFazio's voice floated in his head. She had always reminded him to draw a picture when he couldn't figure out how to start a math problem. Always a good idea. Draw the picture. I'm sure Mr. Hutch taught you that. I'm sure Miss Young is teaching you that now. A picture of what? He asked in his head. Anything, came the answer. Anything? Yes, anything, as long as there are 53 of them. Dollar signs. Evan decided to draw dollar signs. He started to draw 3 rows of dollar signs. 1, 2, 3. He counted as he drew. Now, obviously in your book right now, you are seeing the pictures of him drawing 3 columns, actually 3 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he's going to keep going until he runs out, until he gets to 53. By the time he reached 53, his page looked like this. And you can see all the dollar signs in each row. There were 17 dollar signs in each row, and then those 2 extra dollar signs left over. Evan drew a ring around those 2 extras. 17 dollar signs and 2 left over. Evan stared at the picture for a long time. He wrote Friday next to the first row, Saturday next to the second row, and Sunday next to the third row. Evan looked at the picture. It started to make sense. He needed to make $17 on Friday, $17 on Saturday, and $17 on Sunday. And somewhere over the next 3 days, he needed to make 2 extra bucks in order to earn $53 by Sunday evening. Dude just did a math problem. He should be proud of himself. This is something that Jesse's been doing for him all this time, and he did it on his own, using his memories. Evan felt his heart jump in his chest. He had done it. He had figured out 53 divided by 3. That was a 4th grade problem. That was a 4th grade math problem. And he hadn't even started 4th grade, and no one had helped him. Not Mom, not Grandma, not Jesse. He did it all by himself. It was like shooting the winning basket in double overtime. Simile. He hadn't felt this good since the Lemonade War had begun. That's interesting. So he feels good about this, but the Lemonade War makes him feel bad. But $17 a day? How was he going to do that? Yesterday he made $45, but that was because he'd had help and free supplies from his friends. They weren't going to want to run a lemonade stand every day, especially on the last days of summer vacation. He needed a plan, something that would guarantee good sales. The weather was holding out, that was for sure. It was going to hit 95 degrees today, a real scorcher. People would be thirsty, all right. Evan closed his eyes and imagined a crowd of thirsty people, all waving dollar bills at him. Now, where was he going to find a lot of thirsty people with money to spend? An idea popped into Evan's head. Yep, it was perfect. He just needed to find something with wheels to get him there. Prediction, where is he going to go? We know he's going somewhere different, so you might want to jot setting down on the side there for those of you who are reading with me. Even at home, if you have your own book, maybe jot setting down. Don't do it if you have a school book. Okay, put it on a sticky note, right? Think about this change in setting. We're going somewhere. You know that because there's a gap there, and that space in a novel always means there's going to be a time lapse. So we're moving to another time, okay, forward probably to wherever Evan is going. It took Evan half an hour to drag his loaded wagon to the town center. So he's moving to where the town is in the center. So if you can imagine, here in McCain, that town might be, you know, where Jay's is, or maybe where Country Fair is, maybe down at McCain Park. But, you know, in a regular town, you might have like a park or something in the middle of the town. It took Evan half an hour to drag his loaded wagon to the town center, a distance he usually traveled in less than 5 minutes by bike. But once he was there, he knew it was worth it. It was lunchtime, and the shaded benches on the town green were filled with people, sprawling in the heat. Highlight sprawling vocabulary word. What does sprawling look like? Okay. Workers from the nearby stores on their half-hour lunch breaks, moms out with their kids, old people who didn't want to be cooped up in their houses all day, high school kids on skateboards slooshed by, preschoolers climbed on a life-size sculpture of a circle of children playing Ring Around the Rosie, dogs lay under the trees, their tongues hanging out, pant, 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 onomatopoeia. Evans surveyed the scene and picked his spot, right in the center of the green where all the paths met. Anyone walking across the green would have to pass his stand, and who could resist lemonade on a day as hot as this? Highlight surveyed and put a V at the top. Now, surveyed is a tough word. There's lots of definitions for surveyed, but Evans surveyed the scene and picked his spot. So he's doing what? He's looking, okay? But first he wheeled his wagon off to the side, parked it halfway under a huge rhododendron, and then he crossed the street and walked into the Big Dipper. The frozen air felt good on his skin. This is all imagery, by the way, painting a picture with words and senses. Jacqueline Davis does a great job of that in there. So he walks out of the heat to let you know how hot it is outside. So going back to setting, this is one of those circumstances where we're getting atmosphere, where it's hot. And now he's going into the Big Dipper. You can imagine what the Big Dipper is, okay? So it's nice and cool in the Big Dipper. So, you know, like when you walk into a store that's cool from hot, like that feeling, it's like, oh, thank goodness. The frozen air felt good on his skin. It was like getting dunked in a vat of just melted ice cream. Similarly, walking into that cool ice cream store to getting dumped into ice cream. And the smells, a mix of vanilla, chocolate, coconut, caramel, and bubblegum. He looked at the tubs of ice cream, all in a row, carefully protected behind a pane of glass. The money in his pocket tingled. Hyperbole. He had plenty left over after buying 5 cans of frozen lemonade mixed with the earnings from yesterday. What would it hurt to buy just 1 cone, or a milkshake, or maybe both? So the Evan of old, he's buying something. Remember, the saver is Jesse. He spends. Can I help you? Asked the woman behind the counter. Yeah, said Evan. He stuck his hand in his pocket and felt all the money. Bills and coins ruffled between his fingers. Money was meant to be spent. Why not spend a little? So why is he in the store if he's not there to spend it? Evan could just imagine how good the ice cream would feel sliding down his hot throat. Creamy, sweet, like cold, golden deliciousness. He let his mind float, hyperbole, as he gazed at the swirly buckets of ice cream. Imagery, 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 imagery. Wow, what a painted picture. I want some ice cream. The sound of laughter brought him back to earth in a hurry. He looked around. It was just some girls he didn't know at the water fountain, but it sounded like Megan Moriarty. No wonder it irritates him that Jesse is with Megan Moriarty. Like, he likes her. Can you please tell me how much a glass of lemonade costs? $3, said the woman. Really? Said Evan. That much? How big's the cup? The woman pulled a plastic cup off a stack and held it up. It wasn't much bigger than the 8-ounce cups Evan had in his wagon. What can he do? Think about it. $3, and he's got cups almost the same size. Wow, $3? That's a lot, said Evan. Well, thanks anyways. He started to walk to the door. Hey, said the woman, pointing to the ice cream case. I'm allowed to give you taste for free. Really? Said Evan. Then, could I taste the strawberry slam? The woman handed him a tiny plastic spoon with 3 licks worth of pink ice cream on it. Evan swallowed it all in one gulp. Back outside, he got to work. First, he filled his pitchers with water from the drinking fountain. Then he stirred in the mix. Then he pulled out a big blue marker and wrote on a piece of paper, $2 per cup. Best price in town. $2 per cup? Oh, he's going to make a killing if it sells. He barely finished setting up when the customers started lining up. Highlight barely, vocabulary word. He barely did it. He just did it in time. And they didn't stop. For a full hour, he poured lemonade. The world is a thirsty place, he thought, as he nearly emptied his 4th pitcher of the day. And I am the Lemonade King. Later, Evan would think of something his grandma said. Pride goeth before a fall. Pride goeth before a fall. Prideful. If you're prideful, you think highly of yourself. Goeth, pride goes, before a fall. So if you think you're doing a great job and you're not really thinking about it, a fall is sure to come. That is foreshadowing something. When Evan looked up, there was Officer Ken, his hands on his hips, looking down on him. New character, highlight Officer Ken. Evan gulped. He stared at the large holstered gun strapped to Officer Ken's belt. Hello, said Officer Ken, not smiling. Hi, said Evan. Officer Ken did the bike rodeo every year at Evan's school. He was also the cop who had shown up last fall when there was a hurt goose on the recess field. Officer Ken was always smiling. Why is he smiling now? Evan wondered. Do you have a permit? Highlight permit. Vocab word. A permit is a special license that you get to do things. So you get a permit when you're 16 so that you can drive with your parents' permission so you can learn how to drive. You get a permit to sell on like flea markets. You have to have a permit. Even those people that like say that they're homeless, they need a permit to do that, to collect change. Officer Ken is asking him if he has a permit. Do you have a permit? Asked Officer Ken. He had a very deep voice, even when he talked quietly, like he did now. You mean like a bike permit? That's what the rodeo was all about. If they passed the rodeo, the 3rd graders got their bike permits, which meant they were allowed to ride to school. No, I mean a permit to sell food and beverages in a public space. You need to get a permit from the town hall and pay a fee for the privilege. Highlight privilege, vocabulary word. Privilege means something extra that you can do. Pay the town hall to run a lemonade stand? Was he kidding? Evan looked at Officer Ken's face. He didn't look like he was kidding. I didn't know I needed one, said Evan. Sorry, friend, said Officer Ken. I'm going to have to shut you down. It's the law. Uh-oh. Wonder if he's going to have to pay for that permit. But there are lemonade stands all over town, said Evan. He thought of Jesse and Megan's lemonade stand. When he'd wheeled by with his wagon more than an hour ago, their stand had looked like a beehive. Simile, comparing their stand to a beehive. Bees have a hive they swarm around, so imagine what's swarming around that lemonade stand. People buying lemonade. With small kids crowding around, he had read the sign over their stand. Free face painting, nail polishing, hair braiding. What a gimmick. Highlight vocab, a gimmick. It's like something extra that you do to like get people to come. Remember, they were selling all the fun. But it sure looked like it was working. You know, said Evan, there's a stand on Damon Road right now. You should go bust them. Really, Evan? Really? Officer Ken smiled. We tend to look the other way when it's in a residential neighborhood. But right here on the town green, we have to enforce the law. Otherwise, we'd have someone selling something every 2 feet. So what does it mean to look the other way? Right? If they're looking the other way, are they busting it or letting it go? But there had to be some way to convince Officer Ken. How could Evan make him understand? You see, I've got this little sister, and we've got a competition going to see who can sell the most lemonade, and I've got to win because she's... He couldn't explain the rest about 4th grade and how embarrassed he was to be in the same class as his kid sister and how it made him feel like a great big loser. Evan looked up at Officer Ken. Officer Ken looked down at Evan. It was like Officer Ken was wearing a mask, a nose smiling, I'm not your buddy mask, simile, comparing the face Officer Ken was making to a no smiling mask. Then Officer Ken shook his head and smiled, and the mask fell off. I've got a little sister too, he said. Love her to death now. But when we were kids, Officer Ken sucked in his breath, hoo-wee, and shook his head again. Then the mask came back, and Officer Ken looked right at Evan for 10 very stern seconds. Tell you what, said Officer Ken, I do have to shut you down. The law's the law. But before I do, about one last glass of lemonade. How's that sound? Evan's face fell. Sure, he said without enthusiasm. He poured an extra tall cup and gave it to the policeman. Officer Ken reached into his pocket and handed Evan a $5 bill. Keep the change, he said. A contribution to the Big Brother Fund. Highlight contribution. Put vocab. It's when you add money to something. Usually money. Could be other things too. Now clean up your things and don't leave any litter behind. He lifted his cup in a toast as he walked away. Evan watched him go. Wow, he thought. I just sold the most expensive cup of lemonade in town. Evan stared at the $5 bill in his hand. It was funny. 2 days ago, he would have felt as rich as a king to have that money in his hands. Simile, comparing him to being a rich king. It was enough to buy 2 slices of pizza and a soda with his friends. It was enough to run a video and have a late night at someone's house. It was enough to buy a whole bag full of his favorite candy mix at CVS. 2 days ago, he would have been jumping for joy. Now he looked at the $5 and thought, it's nothing. Compared to the $100 he needed to win the war, $5 was nothing. He felt somehow that he'd been robbed of something, maybe the happiness he should have been feeling. He loaded everything from a stand into the wagon, making sure he didn't leave a scrap of litter behind. He still had a glass full of lemonade left in one pitcher, not to mention another whole pitcher already mixed up and unsold. So he poured himself a full cup. Then, before beginning the long, hot haul back to his house, he found an empty spot on the shaded bench and pulled his earnings out of his pockets. He counted once, he counted twice, very slowly. He had made $65. The cups and lemonade mix had cost $9. When he added in his earnings from Wednesday and Thursday, he had $103.11. Now that's enough, he thought. Holy cow, he just won. He just won. He made his $100. Still 2 days left. It's crazy. crazy. He won. Prediction. Chapter 7, obviously Evan, his crowning achievement. There's still a lot of the book left though, isn't there? Chapter 8, going global. Jesse's chapter. Going global. Obviously highlight that early. Put a V above it. Ponder what that means. Thank you for reading chapter 7 with me. Of course, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, leave some comments. Let me know what you think, how I can do things different. If you're a teacher who's watching this, please let me know how you can help. Please let me know how maybe you would do it differently. Give me some ideas and reach out to me. You're welcome to obviously leave a comment below. You can always send me an email anytime that you want to. And let your kids know that these books are available to them should they need a book to read and you have something to listen to. I analyze every book. I have gotten requests to just read books without analyzing, but I want to do it so that my students can get something out of it. So I always analyze. Now, will I have time at some point post-pandemic to do that? I probably will. And if I get enough requests, of course, I will do that. So please, please, please have people subscribe. Again, I'm not looking for anything out of this other than to just be able to apply my skill here in class with people across the country. Language arts is my passion. I love to write. I love to read with my kids. And if they can help your kids out, more power to them. And it just helps, add the sails, the winds to my sails as I kind of go through this. So thank you everybody for reading to my class. Awesome job. Again, please make sure you highlight your books. Please make sure you write where you need to write and you do all the things that you need to do. And thanks for being awesome. I will see you guys tomorrow and I will see everyone else on the next page. Peace.